Excellent. So a lot of people are eating. All those boys, every day, I was at a presentation where the MD of First Bank said that every day in Nigeria, in spite of the statistics about our poverty level, at least 160 million people will eat something. True or false? At least 160 million people will wear something. True or false? And they would also find somewhere to do what? To sleep. So we have a very young population. We have a very vibrant population. There may be issues around the quality of our population, but there are people to consume the food, right? And remember, the statistics that says that Nigeria currently spends over $21 billion on food importation. That means that currently, as we speak, Nigeria's GDP, over 5% of it goes into food importation. And we say we can't do anything about it. I'm sure there's a lot we can do. So you look at, where are we currently playing most in Nigeria? The narrative in the past had always dwelt on production. Over 40% of our arable land is not cultivated, meaning that even in the area of primary production, where we seem to be dominant, we are not doing enough. I drive from Lagos to Warri, sometimes to Ilorin, up to Abuja, and I see very beautiful plains. When you're going from Ibadan to Ogbomoso, from Ogbomoso to Jeba and all those places, you see a lot of beautiful land. All of them like that. I mean, the other day I went from Kaduna down to Makarfi, and I saw them harvesting pepper, harvesting rice, and sugarcane. And someone said to me, don't I want to buy? I said, I want to buy now. The price at which I got it was ridiculous. I said, about shipping it to Lagos. They said, madam, don't worry, only 5,000 naira. And why are they offering it like that? Because if they don't sell it, it will go bad. We have information saying people take goods to the market. If they don't sell it that day, they just leave it and they go home with it, without it. Because the cost of transporting is even higher than the cost of producing. So, okay, thank you. So this is where I am. So I want to talk about the value chain. What should we do? There's a lot of, right now in Nigeria, there's a lot of emphasis on production. We are doing a lot here. People are farming, people are buying land, people are employing laborers. Even as far as laborers are concerned, we still have to import them from Cotonou. We have to import them from Togo. If your farm is somewhere in Delta, we have to import farm workers from Calabar. So there's a lot happening here. And then harvesting and transport, this is a huge, huge, huge vacuum here. We don't have cold chain logistics in Nigeria. It's minimal or practically non-existent. So who is going to play there? Who is currently in transport now and is complaining and is saying, where can I play? Where else can I get more business, right? Primary processing and storage. Every time I drive past, I go to mile 12 to buy pepper, tomatoes, and co. The few times I go myself and I see the amount of produce that goes to waste, I always say to my niece or my sister that, you know what, I'm going to come and put a processing factory right in the middle of mile 12, so that before the produce goes bad, I'll just tell them, bring it. And then I'll process so that it does not go bad. There is no such facility in my 12, in Oyigbo, in Ojuoye, in Ido market. There is no such thing there. So primary processes, even beyond where the products are harvested, in our markets, just before they go bad, nobody does anything to them. So you find heaps and heaps of produce going bad on a daily basis. And this is scary if you imagine that in Lagos, I mean, I got that data from, I can't remember where, but in Lagos, it's estimated that we spend over 600 million naira on food daily. So how many of that goes to waste? Secondary processing. So primary processing is when you take it from the first raw stage. So people who harvest rice, they harvest rice, right? And then they thresh it. Before they start parboiling, they remove the stones from the rice before they start parboiling. to sell. Those are primary processing. When you talk about secondary processing, is when you now take it from a sorted stage to another stage where you process into any form that you choose. Any form that you choose. So if we take rice again, from destoning and dechaffing, you now begin to talk about parboiling, right? And then packaging. Who does that? How many percentage of that do we have in Nigeria? When you go to a lot of the farms, you see food wasting on a daily basis. And here's the sad part now. It is happening, but a lot of us probably are not paying attention to it. We are now beginning to have a lot of Asians coming to buy cash crops from our markets. So we are here. We are not participating in primary production. We are not engaged in primary processing. We are not engaged in secondary processing. But we now have a new crop of Asians and perhaps other nationals who are coming to buy right at the point of harvest. And they buy using the parameters of the global commodities market. So for instance, the one that I can remember, so please pardon me, the one I can remember off the top of my head is granules. They'll tell you that crude granite oil sells for about $1,000 to $1,500, depending on who's buying from you. And I said to the person that I can't sell at that rate. He said, but why? I said, I can't sell because as you see later, the numbers don't add up for me. There's no incentive for me to sell at that rate. It's cheaper for me to process my product up to secondary stage, distribute and package it, and sell than to spend all that energy and get the crude and give to you, and then you give me just about $1,000 per ton. It just doesn't work. And that's what we are doing with crude oil. Exactly how the crude oil market is. That's how we are approaching our export of agribusiness, agri-products now. So everybody says, oh, there's cashew for export. You go, people are rushing. When you go to Ogbomoso during cashew season, it's as if you are in Delhi or one of those Indian cities, because you see a lot of Indians in the market. They are buying up all the cashew. I do granite oil. And my suppliers tell us that, madam, we have a lot of people who are even willing to pay up front. I go to Mina, they tell me the same thing. I'm saying, what's happening here? Why are we suddenly having a lot of people coming to take the primary crude? They know what most of us are not paying attention to. We know, but we're not paying attention to. They know that if they do some secondary processing and package it, they get more value. And the increase in value is significant, as we'll see as we go along. So distribution and packaging and handling. In Nigeria, there are very few companies who do packaging materials. Again, it's an area that is dominated by Asians. I'm trying to do my own bottles, and every factory that we go to is either an Indian. In fact, most of them are Indian owned. They make bottles, the ones that make cartons, the same thing. But thank God for the brave boys who are in Babolosha, right? They're in Mushi. Those boys are, I said I want to print, I'm going to WAUM. The boy said, madam, don't go anywhere, come, we'll do it for you. And we are working with it. So there's opportunity there. And of course, wholesale and retail markets. We all know there's a renaissance of retail business, retail shops in Nigeria. So do you want to be part of a chain, or do you want to supply to a chain, or do you want to rent inside a supermarket, or do you want to even supply to the open market? How do you want to play there? I went to Ido market, and somebody was trying to market oil to me. I said, I have my own granite oil too. He said, madam, is it label or, for those, let me speak Yoruba, I'll translate. He said, madam, sheri ronya be packaging, money packaging, ole mua. I showed her the photograph, and that's how I got a customer in Ido market. The market is open and willing to take our produce, but how many do we have? I have how would I call it? I have an obscenity with now looking around and saying, hey, when I go to a supermarket, I want to see how many local products are there, and I want to see how many imported products are there. The numbers still aren't competitive enough. So that means there's room for more players. Again, along the entire value chain, you say, hey, okay, I've talked about production, harvesting, primary processing, secondary processing, distribution, packaging. What can you do? From the primary production area, inputs, seeds, There's room for work there. Irrigation, most of the farming in Nigeria is still done with the natural weather. We still wait for rainy season, planting season, and all of that. Our level of irrigation penetration in Nigeria is dismal. So there's room for that, okay? How about fertilizers? There are people producing organic fertilizers in Nigeria now, but what's the level of penetration? It's very low. Production, mechanization. How many businesses are doing mechanization in Nigeria? How many businesses in Nigeria are fabricating machines and equipment? There are very few. I know that because I've tried to buy machines, but there is a good news to that also. If you go to Ojota, there's a hub there where they can fabricate almost any machine for you. There's also NCAM, the Nigerian Center for Agricultural Mechanization, is in Kwara State, just at the edge of Kwara and Kogi State. Very underutilized facility. And the gentleman says to me that, look, we can only do so much because we don't have enough subvention. However, now we are beginning to look at commercialization. So there are all of those things there for us to work with. Transport, I talked about cold chain. Even moving your goods from one point to the other is a problem. Sometimes we buy granite and it has to wait for 3 days or 4 days because there are no trucks to move them from where they are harvested to town. Storage and handling. We don't even have any agricultural park anywhere in Nigeria. So that's an opportunity for people to play in. Value-added processing, drying, grinding, milling. I'm always quick to point people to somewhere in Lagos. When they say, this agri, how can I play? I say, what do? You want to process, you want to package, please. There's a place in Ojota called Global Sterling. Go there. I think it's 356 or so, just after Bata. They have all sorts of machines for packaging anything that you can imagine in Nigeria. Marketing and distribution. I think this is one space that a lot of people can play in. One of the things we had said earlier is that if you want to go into this space, right, start with where you are. And what I tell people is, someone says, hey, I want to have a poultry. And I'll say, if you want to start a poultry, you probably won't earn any money for 6 months. And you'll be discouraged. Why don't you start by selling chicken? Why don't you get a shop, buy deep freezers, and start selling chicken? I say, no, I can't sell chicken. I said, then you can't do poultry. If you cannot sell chicken in a deep freezer, then you cannot do a poultry because you will not understand the business. You will not understand the dynamics of the market. And so what I say to people is, whatever space you want to play in, do you understand the customers that are consuming your product? Whether it is livestock, whether it is crop, whether it is animal feeds, whatever it is you want to do, start with the customers. Start with how people are consuming the product. We've had people who went to invest money in vegetable farms because they heard that people export to go every day. And they ended up losing a lot of money. I've had people who went to invest in cassava. And they've invested in cassava, they've harvested, they can't sell. And someone says to me that, Helen, can you imagine all this my cassava? Somebody wants to come and buy it for just 10,000 naira. I said, that's an error. Why don't you start with understanding how they sell gari in the market? What kind of gari do people buy? How do they buy a lubolebu? We need to take a bit more time. For those of us who are used to operating in the corporate system, we need to, if we want to operate profitably in this system, we need to understand how people consume the products. How many of us have been to Mile 12? How many of us go to Ido? How many of us go to Sandgross? How many of us know that if I buy tomatoes, a basket of tomatoes in Mile 12 for maybe 10,000 naira, I can sell it at Sandgross for 40,000 naira? That's the number. So all those women that we see, that we talk to anyhow in the market, they're actually more liquid than most of us in this room. Right? So I'm following my slides, but I thought I should just sum it up since we didn't start with the slide. Because I'm saying domestic market, what can you sell? There are a lot of things you can sell. Even fruit juice. How many of us are making juices? I know someone who does over 100 million naira from making fruit juices. And her facility is now up to half of this room. And she makes over 100 million naira from fruit juices. I say to people, export is good. I really love the export market if you are keen on making money. But I'm not an advocate of export for now. And the reason is simple. We still have a lot to do with all the things here. I haven't seen any made in Nigeria corned beef. I haven't seen any made in Nigeria sardine. I haven't seen made in Nigeria baked beans. Maybe I'm wrong. You can correct me. I haven't seen made in Nigeria corned beef, sardine, or baked beans. We don't even have made in Nigeria jollof rice. We don't even have made in Nigeria egusi soup that we can export, apart from the people doing obe now. So we still have a lot to do. And if you want to play in that area, again, I'll appeal to you. Before you even buy the land, go and look at what the market is saying. That's why a lot of people who have invested in agri have lost money, because they don't know about it. They just put their money in it, right? Now, some prices. Look at a ton of maize. It's 85,000 naira. A ton of dry ogi is about 1.6 million naira. I'm using conservative estimates based on the fact that a carton of 400 grams costs about 8,000 naira. How many of that will you need to get a ton? For granules in its raw form is 150,000 naira. Crude granite oil, a ton, is 500,000. You probably, so this 500,000 naira. So question is, how many of these will you use to get this? You will get it from this to this. Sesame, palm oil. I mean, I'm 100% sure, 500% sure of this, because it's ridiculous. I'm saying to them that, hey, this palm oil that we're making in Abraka, we're wasting money. Bring it, let me brand it, and this is what I'll get. And my costs aren't as dramatic as they may appear. Cassava, for 75,000 naira worth of cassava, you get 260,000 naira worth of gari. Now, the thing is, there are a lot of things that happen between here and here. A lot of things happen. There are also costs. And this is where we also get it wrong. Production is a cost-intensive process. Production is not like the service industry. So if you are used to working in the service industry and you have a nice air-conditioned room with all the paraphernalia, with production, you have to match your costs to your output. You have to match your costs with your output. So with production, you have to spend a lot of money. You have to have a lot of resources. But more importantly, you have to understand that with production, every cost counts. Every cost counts. So this is also an area where in our operations management, we have to be conscious that there is a cost to it. And for me, I also see it as an opportunity for skills to play. This is exactly where our skills come in, because all of us in this room have one management experience or the other. So between when a ton is 85,000 and a ton is 1.6 million naira, that's where we actually have room to play. Because as a farmer, I tell people that farming is a science. Any form of primary production is a science, because there are things you must do. You can't change anything in it. However, when it comes to adding value and processing, that is where our art, whether you're an engineer, you're a marketing person, you're an HR person, whatever your industry is, that's where your art can come in. Okay, so these are estimates. So in between that point of 85 to these are all the things that we can do. So there are a lot of problems in this space, from spoilage, supplier failures, financial challenges, banks. There aren't any microfinance banks that are focused on agri primarily. Only recently did we begin to have private equity players coming. And the ones we have are not enough. They are not enough. I've had the good fortune of working with loads and loads of SMEs that are in primary production. Access to capital is their number one challenge. They don't have anybody who will give them 1 million naira. And 1 million naira is a lot of money when you are in that ecosystem. When you are at that level, where you are trying to convert a primary product to a finished product. So think of all the natural disaster. There's room for insurance companies, right? Infrastructure outages. Hey, we are trying to do an agri-zone in Ekpe where we aggregate. We have over 80 acres of land, and we're trying to put primary infrastructure like water and a big gen there. So if you want to start your farm, you don't have to think about your own bowl. You don't have to think about buying your generator immediately. At least we can get you going, and then by the time your business is stable, you can begin to make all of that investment. All the problems that we have in the system, the ecosystem now, from the raw production to manufacturing, packaging, distribution, and then wholesale, down to even healthcare. All the problems that we have are an opportunity for somebody to play in there. 3 years ago, I wasn't a proud agri-business practitioner. When I got to my AGMP5 class, I told them that I wanted to do snail. Why did I say that? I'll tell you. I said that because I saw an opportunity, that I realized that there was a vacuum in the snail market. It's estimated that in the global snail market, there's a deficit of over $400 billion over $400 billion. So I said, I will do snail. But it didn't work. So what did I do? I revised my business model. So for us to play in this space, we have to have an innovative business model. We cannot go with the traditional business model of processing. If you go with the traditional business model, the cost of equipment alone will discourage you. So what's the good news? The good news is that already in Nigeria, there's an army of primary processors who understand the market, who understand the system, but they don't have resources. They don't have experience. They don't have enough financial capacity. They don't even have enough knowledge of how to grow their business from primary production to a sustainable business. But then there's another army of experienced people who have resources, who, if 10 or 20 of them got together, they could raise 100 million naira. And that can either come through direct investment or through private equity firms. And so those are the people who need to change the business model so that the key resources that you need for processing, such as your land, your labor, your equipment, you don't have to procure them. You all come together and support somebody that already is doing it. That's what we are doing. So we look for small producers. We tell them, I'm not investing in your business, but I'll give you a forward. I'll buy XYZ from you. You do all the primary production, all of that, and then I take from you at a semi-processed stage, and we finish it, package it, and we sell. That makes it easier for us. So what will move us forward is to review our business models. You don't have to own everything. I was speaking with Mr. Goma earlier on, and he said, hey, this is the era of collaboration. I said, that's the way to go. That's the way to go. If you need somebody to talk, come and call me. If you need somebody to sell, come and call me. But the person that we plant, harvest, and do primary process, I'm not interested at all. And I'm not very unapologetic about it. That's what has helped us grow our brand within 16 months. We now have NAFDAC approval. We are now in supermarkets. We are in Ebano. We are in Bazaar. We are expanding even around Nigeria. I have people taking my products now. And I can do that comfortably because we have a NAFDAC registration. We are working on our SON registration now. So those are the things that somebody who is at the primary stage does not have. But because we are marketing people and we also have some capacity, we are able to fast track our growth by concentrating on our area of core competence. We don't want to do everything. And I think it's only when we begin to look at innovative business models that we can actually grow that grow the sector. We cannot go the traditional way of owning everything. I have somebody else who says, you know what, I'm doing soap. Someone says I'm doing fertilizer, but I don't have a factory. And there was a huge debate in the class. How can you not have a factory and you say you are producing? This guy says I'm doing contract manufacturing. All I worry about is look for the market. And so we need to do a lot more of that. Where do you innovate? You can innovate in the process. You can innovate in your offering. There was a time that nobody was buying fresh produce online. But Easy Cook, Easy Shop has made it very popular. Jumia Foods, you can buy any kind of food there. So we have to innovate in the offering. We can innovate in delivery. We can even innovate in financing. So before, if you wanted to invest in a business, it would mean that you pay for shares. But now you don't have to give somebody that you have no control over your money. You can innovate in the way you finance the enterprise. You can have forwards. You can buy and give it to him to process. You can pay for everything, and all the guy does is process and give you the finished one. It is not an easy task, but we can innovate along these entire processes in the value chain. So there's room for it. I like snails. I talked about this, but hey, it's just the fact that I love snails, and I know that there is about 12 billion. This was just Europe, and the source was Italy Snail Farmers Association. Just because I saw that information, I mean, I was ready to fight anybody in class. They told me to do pig farming. I said, never. I don't like pigs. Eventually, they convinced me that you should look at pig farming, right? But just because I love snails does not mean I should do snail business. Instead, I stayed in a space where I could add real value. And that's how I go. Equipment supply and leasing. There's a lot of space to play here. It's a near monopoly now. It's a very, very narrow market. A lot of people bring equipment from China. When you bring your equipment from China, what happens is, if anything is wrong with the equipment, you have to look for someone who is familiar with it. I know quite a number of people who have brought in equipment from China, and they had to abandon them and buy locally. So for equipment, there aren't enough suppliers of equipment. That's another space for somebody who is used to selling hardware, who is used to selling heavy-duty equipment to look at. Even tractors. I mean, somebody was giving me a figure of the number of tractors in Nigeria, the number of tractors, the number of tractors in Nigeria, that they are not even up to 1,000 tractors in Nigeria. And we want to grow farming. How can we do that? And one tractor costs about 30 million naira. Can some people come together and fund tractor leasing? ICT, we in fact, I won't even dwell here, but for those who are in ICT, there's room to play here, because in more advanced economy, there are things happening here. I mean, I listened to the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, address the ECOWAS summit, and he was saying, Israel, we are first in irrigation, we are first in ICT for agri, we are first in security. And he said to us, he said, you know what, Africa, you have problems. Israel, we have solutions. We have to have a good collaboration. I was so embarrassed. Please, Google, it's on YouTube. Look for it. Netanyahu addressing ECOWAS summit. That's what he said. That's what he said. He said, Africa, you have problems. Israel, we have solutions. That's a good basis for us to have an alliance. So for those of us in ICT, there's still a huge vacuum here for us. A lot of things you can do, from checking the weather, but where are we in Nigeria? This is where we are. To a significant extent, we are still here. So for the people in ICT, you can begin to look at that space and see what you can do and how you can add value. All right, finance, I talked a bit about that. And this model is by FIE Microfinance Bank, how they give money to small farmers and how they get their returns from them. For those of us in finance, I think that now is the time for real retail financing. And the good part of it is these people don't need too much money. They're not looking for money to buy a Prado Jeep or a Toyota Corolla. They're not even looking for money to buy AC. They're just looking for money to stay in business. Sometimes I give the guy who supplies me 500,000 and he can call me like 3 times to tell me thank you. If I transfer 500,000 in the morning, before evening I'll get like 3 prayer points. So, so people are no, people are not looking for plenty of money. They're not looking, farmers are not looking for plenty of money, right? It's the same thing with small processors. They are also not looking for plenty of money. The money will go to them in tranches. So again, it's about innovation. How do we innovate in that space? This is a long list of opportunities for financing, right from production to harvest, to collection, to processing, to storage, to marketing. The question is, what's your art? Because primary production is a science. So what's your art? What are you good at doing? I'm also a director in an insurance company. And I'm saying to them, can't you people look at agri-finance? Can't you research on agri-finance? There are so many people so many farmers in Nigeria, they're going to pay you for insurance. There are so many processors in Nigeria, they need to insure their equipment. And what's the crystallization rate in that sector? It's not high because regulation demands that they have very high safety practices. And they're like, even at my board meeting yesterday, we still had this debate. And I was saying, look in that space. Don't go there when it's too late. Just like GSM. The people who went into GSM early are the ones who profited from it. But for agribusiness, we need to look at it with a different lens. I sometimes I ask myself, why didn't I start doing this thing when my father was alive, Seth? You know, it's something I say almost all the time. Somebody said, can you leave the past and focus on the present and the future? And stop looking back. But it's something that we need to pay attention to. So you look at the cassava value chain, from planting, pre-planting down to consumption. There's a lot to be done. What I say to people is, what is your art? Where are you currently playing now? Whatever it is you're playing now, you can find a space there. But the important thing to note here is that Nigeria is currently the highest producer of cassava in Africa. What are we doing with it? How has it translated into multiplication for us? If California, that has just about 30 to 40 million people, has a GDP of over 1.4 trillion, Nigeria with 190 people, we have a GDP of $424 billion. That means we are underperforming as a nation. And these are some of the reasons why we are underperforming. It's because we just focus on the primary area of everything we do. And the primary area brings a lot of money. Look at the meat market. And I keep saying that every time I hear that herdsmen attack people, and then some people start posting that you should boycott meat, I say, that's a satanic prayer point. How can you tell people to boycott meat? Instead, tell people to look at how they can come together and open ranches. For those of us who buy meat from the open market, we know that it is a lot cheaper to buy meat from the open market than it is to buy from a butchery. So when you buy from the butchery, you are buying 1 kilogram at 1,500 naira. Meanwhile, what you will spend 5,000 buying or 6,000 buying in a butchery, you buy in the open market for a lot less, maybe 3,000 naira. So what does it mean? It means there's an opportunity there. People say if you kill the cows, there will be food. So let some people start doing that. So there's an entire supply chain that supports that market. What are we doing about it? In Lagos, I hear they kill 6,000 cows daily. So for those of us who are into fashion, there's a lot of hides and skin for you to collect from the abattoirs. Right? Instead of eating pomo. Right? I mean, I think the Lagos... No, it's true. We need to begin to look at everything a bit. Let's reduce the rate at which you buy pomo. Pomo will become more expensive, right? So we need to do something about it. Even growing of grass, nobody grows grass in Nigeria. In other climes, when you build a house, you can actually go and buy your grass and then roll it onto your garden and it's ready. But in Nigeria, nobody is doing that. That's an opportunity for somebody who loves architecture. It can be a value-added business for if you're an architect or if you're a builder and you want to go into that space. So processing, wholesale, retail, as usual. The fish market, this is another very interesting one. It's sad to know that we have a deficit, right, of over 2 million tons, 2 million metric tons. What can we do about it? Who is conscious of it? How about security? Even the fact that trawlers need to be secured when they go on the Gulf of Guinea and they go around the coastal waters of the Atlantic Ocean, that's business for somebody. Yes, there are regulations around every industry in the value chain, but who is going to develop it for us? The foreign investors are not interested in solving our problems. They're interested in making money. So why can't we solve our problems and make money? I mean, one of the problems I like to solve is to educate people about agribusiness. And in my class, I mean, I wasn't interested in it. When people say, Helen, you're a teacher now, you should start teaching people about this thing. Yes, so it's something I'm doing. And I'm enjoying it. So apart from doing my groundnut oil, trying to do a farm, I'm also talking, and I'm still doing my other business. So I'm saying it is a space that has room for your art. Whether you're an HR expert, you're a finance expert, you're a builder, whatever it is you're doing, there's room for you there. So fish is another space where we are not doing enough. I mean, the other day I went to Lekki and I wanted to buy fish because I saw they literally Lekki, not Peninsula, Lekki near Eleko. And the boats came and I went there and the man said to me, Madam, you can't come here. I said, why? People are selling fish. He said, yeah, because people have paid for it ahead. that all those women in Bonny Camp and by Bonny Camp and the bridge Ozumba Mbadiwe, that those women have paid up front. So you can't buy anything until they finish buying. And of course, by the time they finish buying, I didn't even see this size to buy. So there's a lot of things happening around us that we are not even paying sufficient attention to. Now, logistics. This is another area that is grossly underdeveloped in Nigeria. And there's a lot of hue and cry about how the federal government is not providing power for us. How about we begin to collaborate? How about we begin to work in clusters? If you're a real estate developer, like one of my friends is, how about you create a cold zone very close to mile 12, Papa? Nobody is doing it. There aren't just enough infrastructure. It's until you really need something that you know how underdeveloped we are, even though we are supposed to be the giant of Africa. So in logistics, in cold chain management, there's a lot of opportunity there. But who is playing there? Who is researching it? Who is thinking of solutions? We don't have enough. The other thing here is, when you look at the entire ecosystem, what can we do? There's a lot of room for advisory. In technology, who is working there? In finance, what are we doing? Cultivation, are we even telling the farmers what to do, how they should do it, the opportunities they have to improve their practices? Harvest, post-harvest, processing, logistics, and sales. There's a lot to be done in the entire ecosystem. So the question is always, how will I play here? What should I do? I start by saying, hey, whatever it is you're doing now, how can you apply it in that ecosystem? And for you to know how you will apply it, you need to understand how the value chain works, and then take a look at the entire ecosystem. Because also, when you look at the value chain, sometimes it's difficult for you to find where to place yourself, right? But the value chain dwells within an ecosystem. In that ecosystem, what are the things that happen to the value chain? So from the beginning to the end of the value chain, there will be need for financing. There will be need for management staff. There will be need for experts across different fields. And then, of course, logistics, it occurs down the chain. Operations management is an area that a lot of small processors have no perfect understanding of how it works. They just end up, you have to pay Henry for sponsorship before I advertise you. A lot of people do not understand how it works. So you have to work with them in that space. So my gospel, for me, my gospel as far as agribusiness is concerned is that we have to stop looking at it as, for those of us who are elites and who are experts and who are professionals, we have to stop looking at it as their problem. We have to stop looking at it as the government's problem. Rather, we should look at it as an ecosystem that has presented an opportunity for us. Science governs primary production. When you plant, for you to grow a seed, you have to plant it. There are different ways you plant it. But for you to process that seed when it is harvested is a function of your imagination. It's a function of how far you can think. It's a function of how wide and creative your imagination is. So my challenge, where I'll leave it, is that for all the problems that we have in this space, for all the problems that we have in the agribusiness space, the question is, which one will you solve? Which one will you solve? How will you do it? What I have done this morning is to talk about it in a very, very micro and undetailed level. Rather, I've just given a high-level perspective to say, look, there are problems. I mean, there are times I felt like, I'm not interested in this thing, Jerry. It just takes money. Or you go to a supermarket and somebody tells you, we have enough oil and all this thing, go. Sometimes my first reaction is, because it's easy to say you send people, but you need to go yourself so you know what problems your people are facing. You need to go yourself. You need to go and see on the field what is happening. So I can say with every sense of responsibility that I understand that space and I appreciate better what the woman who sells tomatoes in the market goes through before they sell. So my question to us, or my charge to all of us, is whatever our expertise is, let us put it in somewhere in the value chain. There's room for everybody. There's more than enough room for all of us. If you look at chicken, it's another area where there's a lot of drama, but I still see opportunity there. I buy chicken in Ijora, and I was surprised when I went to Ijora and they told me that, Madam, we have Nigerian chicken now, and we have Nigerian fish. So now I can buy Nigerian tilapia in Ijora, and I can also buy the foreign one if I so choose. So there are people thinking, there are people working. Let's begin to work. There's markets for us to take. What are we doing about it, right? Oil, where I play, is a growing market, so I'm going to stay there. I'm going to do my palm oil. I'm going to do my granite oil. I'll do my coconut oil, and as many oils as I can. So I'm going to stay there, but add value. Oil palm production, Nigeria remains the highest in Africa, so I'm encouraged to stay there. And Nigeria still imports palm oil because we're not producing enough, right? It's a growing market. This is my product, Auntie Helen's granite oil. You can call me Auntie Helen if you want. It's an interesting journey, but I thought I should share to say that it can be done. I mean, sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, how did we get here? Even my staff are very excited. And the good thing is, I'm not doing this with an army. We have less than 10 people working on this project. Because why? Technology has simplified things. We have a bottling machine that can bottle 700 bottles per hour. So it's no longer rocket science to bottle. And that machine is just about the size of this podium. It's semi-automated, so we can do that. Okay, long journey. That's me in my factory. Very, very long journey, but it can be done. And we market our brand. That's my area of expertise. Thank you.